is Sarah Thomas. I work with United Way of Greater Los Angeles on our homeless initiatives teams. And I'm here about bridge housing. We strongly support all of these motions. We see throughout our work the need for collaboration of different types of resources, and bridge housing was one of those. It's not something that can be solved. This crisis is not something that can be solved by one type of resource, and bridge housing is a huge part that has a big impact on this problem. We need to be able to house our homeless neighbors who are then going to be placed into permanent housing, and this is a great option for them before that process can start.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Chelsea Byers. I'm the Westside Field Organizer for the Everyone in campaign powered by United Way. We're working hard to activate support to bring about the 10,000 units of supportive housing that are ultimately needed to support our unhoused neighbors. But while that permanent housing is being created, we need more temporary housing like these bridge shelters to support people where they're at. Proven by the nearly 75% of people who are experiencing homelessness who live outdoors every single day. I'm sure everybody had to walk outside to get here, and it's cold. I'm still shivering from it, and days like this are just great reminders of how urgent this crisis is and how we must prioritize bridge housing as a solution now. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking on item 5 and the other 4 on bridge housing. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Olivia Lee, the LA Area Chamber of Commerce, here in support of items 5, 7, 8, 14, and 16. The Chamber is a proud partner of the United Way of Greater Los Angeles in our efforts to combat homelessness through the Home for Good initiative, the Everyone In campaign, and advocacy for the LA region. As we all know, Los Angeles is undergoing a housing and homelessness crisis with over 30,000 Angelenos experiencing homelessness throughout our city. The proposed bridge housing projects before you is integral in getting our homeless community into a safe place and connecting them with much needed services to get them back on their feet. Getting bridge housing operational in all parts of the city is imperative to tackle this issue, and we're excited to see this come to fruition. We recognize that you are all under considerable pressure from certain communities, and we thank you for continuing to move forward. The Chamber is happy to support in any way that would be most helpful to you all. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Yes, my name is John Pelzer. I'm here on item 5 to speak in support of bridge housing. I support it because it is the right thing to do, and it is also the fair thing to do because it spreads responsibility we all have around the city. More specifically, while Councilman Bonin is not my councilman, I would like to give him a major shout out. I have seen him stand up to the ugliness and short-sightedness of NIMBYism. And one final thought, getting reelected is easy if you don't stand for anything.
Good afternoon. My name is Gabriela Garcia. I'm part of the Everyone In campaign through the United Way. And we're on the ground with our organizing team throughout the city and county of Los Angeles. And I'm here to speak in support of all the bridge sites. Specifically the ones, well, all of them. I've been on the ground with folks in Watts and in Wilmington and in Koreatown. And this is a time, I think this is the right time. We're finally aligning resources, and now we're just on the ground changing and shifting people's minds and hearts. This is the right response. This is the bridge between not being on the streets and going into a permanent home. And I think that this is the right move at the moment. We're finally aligning the resources to the need, and we're in full support. And it has been very difficult conversations, but I think at the end of the day, I think when we finally begin to see our neighbors coming indoors, I think that's when we're all going to celebrate together.
Thank you.
All right, we have Allie Haver, Nicole Wainwright. Nicole or Allie, or both?
Hi, I'm Nicole Wainwright, and I work at Safe Place for Youth. I think it's shameful and cruel that we allow our community members to live and to suffer on the streets. I think it's our responsibility as fellow humans to support our brothers and sisters that have fallen on hard times, because we would expect the same if we were in a situation like that. So I'm speaking in favor of all homeless housing, including bridge housing, and I really hope that we're able to pass that in all the neighborhoods where it's proposed, especially in Venice, where we have a huge population of homeless in general, and especially homeless youth that are seeking services, and resources are so depleted that we're having a hard time placing them into housing. So it's necessary, it's needed, and it's the right thing to do.
Hi, my name is Allie Haber, and I work at Safe Place for Youth in Venice as well, and I'm here in support of all bridge housing. I cannot stress enough how many people come through our doors every day that are desperately in need of a safe place to stay, especially on a day like this, as was mentioned earlier. I think everyone here is probably thinking of the warmth and safety of our beds, and we need to be aware of how many people don't have that. This problem's not going to solve itself, and this is the only way to solve it, by taking action, and money does one thing, but physical beds are really what we need. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Herman and Wayne for 2 minutes each.
You know, I'm really proud of my president, Mr. Bush, because Mr. Bush has secured housing for the homeless through Monica Rodriguez, who I asked to trim her bush. Because I love Bush. I love Bush so much, I don't know if I'm a homosexual or heterosexual, but I sure love Bush.
You got to stay on the topic.
Well, homeless people sleep on the street. Homeless people sleep under bushes. Homeless people sleep under lots of shrubs that look like a bush. So you tell me when I'm going to find a place to call no place like home other than a bush. Because being homeless is my issue here. Defending the right of every veteran American who's being suppressed by Measure HHH. While the homeless live on the street, doesn't give you the right to say they are your creatures. Because as I mentioned prior to my Bush-loving woman of the 7th District, Monica Rodriguez, and Nuri, I told them specifically how I love Bush. And I demand that we trim every bush.
You're off topic.
No. Homelessness is an issue under the bush. And as long as I'm alive, representing the American dream of living on a bush, under a bush, by a bush, near a bush, and defecating and urinating on a bush, that makes me an American citizen. So whether you like it or not, I'm glad to say I am not a queer. I fuck under a bush.
Wayne.
So as we can see, the silver-tongued cop, Joe Buscaino, once again, is fucking up this whole crisis and bridge housing shit, trying to put it near schools and playgrounds. He's got a boat, a large, big fucking boat. It's an old ship. Put the homeless in the ship. It's on dock. That way, the homeowners win, we win, and you give the homeless an ocean view property. They got this old fucking ship from World War II, and they charge you $15 to park to look at an old fucking boat, and it's not being used for anything. Then we get, again, Monica Rodriguez needs to trim the bush so that we can get people more housing. A nicely trimmed bush is essential to the functions of this council, isn't it? All you got to do is ask Jose Huizar that question. That's why you got 4 members on this panel, which you have to have a quorum of 3, and I don't see anybody here than 2 members. So now, Marquise Harris Dawson now will be renamed Marquise Huizar Dawson, because now we have another Huizar. Every day we wake up, the FBI busts one Weezer and another Weezer pops back up. And then, of course, Mike Bonin continues to not wear a tie at a business meeting. Why? Because he's sniffing again, and you ban straws.
You got to stay on the topic.
Well,
Straws
yes,
is another
but
committee.
Remember, Mike Bonin will not be able to sniff anymore because you banned straws.
Straws is another committee. You're off topic. So that concludes public comment on item number 5, 1 through 5. If there's no discussion, we'll move approval to the full council. And then if we could consider together items number 7, 8, 14, and 16. Those items are all, 7, 8, 9, 14, and 16. Those should all be, and you correct me if I'm wrong, rescue me if I'm wrong, please. Those should all be bridge housing items. Seven, 8, 14, and 16.
Yes.
Thank you.
And item 5, of course.
And we just did item 5,
Got it.
so yes. So,
Oh, you're calling them now?
yes.
Okay. So on item 14 and on item 16, same thing as with the Imperial site. We would just ask that the communication from the committee recommend approval of the Bureau of Engineering recommendations on the CEQA analyses for both of those items, as well as the motions.
Okay. We can grant such a request. If I could look at item number 7 on the public comment cards. Caleb Havens. Sarah Thomas. And Olivia Lee.
Thanks, Marquise and Mike. This is what I brought with me today just to take the bus home. I brought a big, thick blanket, big, thick jacket, a couple layers of shirts. And that's not going to be enough for some people this year when it gets really cold. I know that we got the LASA list of bridge shelters out a little late this year. In 2017, 831 people died from overexposure due to chronic homelessness. Just this morning, I went to the memorial we do every year for the unclaimed bodies. About 1,467 Los Angelinos died in 2015, and their remains were unclaimed. And I think that's those statistics represent individuals, neighbors, somebody who was somebody's baby at one time, who we as a community failed by providing public housing options and the bridge shelter options that we're talking about today. It'd be nice if after we approve these shelters, we start working on that Triple H money that's just sitting there. Thanks, guys.
Hi, Sarah Thomas. I put my name down for all of the items having to do with bridge housing, but you don't have to call me for each one.
Okay.
Just supply my public.
We got it. You're with it?
Yeah.
Got it.
Olivia Lee from the chamber did what she said, so thank you so much.
Excellent. Feel free to remain in your seat if you feel like you've said your piece.
So you didn't call my name, but I signed up for all.
Tell me your name.
The bridge. Mike Dennis.
Mike?
Mike Dennis.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm the Director of Organizing for the Everyone In campaign with United Way. Like many of my colleagues, I just want to echo our strong support for moving Bridge into reality as quickly as possible. We're organizing folks all over the county. And one thing is very clear, I know it's not clear to a lot of my fellow community members, but homes solve homelessness. And right now, Bridge is that intermediary to get people into permanent supportive housing so that they can live fulfilled lives. It's really sad that the narrative has become property values over human rights, and I really hope that this council sticks to its guns on this and takes that courage and makes a step. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that concludes our speakers. If you can show me 8 just to be sure. Yes. So that concludes our speakers. So if we, I'll move that we communicate support to the full council for these items. 14. Sorry. Oh, yes, you're right. 14. All right. 14. Oh, yes. Steve Clare, Susan Millman, Chris Tuber, Mark Ryavec.
Hello, my name is Steve Clare. I've been living in Venice for 50 years. I've seen over the last couple of decades most of my friends, low-income friends, being squeezed out of the community and the homeless population explode. City Council has done very little over the last couple of decades, but now you're finally taking action. I commend you for that. I thank you for that. I think the particular location you've chosen in Venice is a good one. It's surrounded by walls. It's also right where people are already living, so I think it'll have a good chance of attracting immediate support and usage by unhoused people in the neighborhood. I do want to make one suggestion. Perhaps you've already considered that. I'm really concerned about winter coming on again. The LAUSD has portable classrooms, trailers, which could be pulled onto the site and immediately utilized. And particularly since the site is only going to be available for maybe 3 or 4 years, you may be able to just use those bungalows and take them to another site where it could be relocated. It might save the city a lot of money and provide housing immediately for people in need. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Susan Millman. I am a 45-plus, I think, year Venice resident. And we all know that there is a housing crisis, and the parameters of it, 30,000 in the city, over 50,000 in the county. And then we've read, I hope we've read, the exposés that have really brought the human nature of homelessness into our homes and hearts. Children, youth, women, victims of domestic violence, refugees from the rising rents and no affordable housing in sight. And the most rapidly growing sector, seniors. So I thank you for pursuing this. I thank Mac Bonin for really standing up, because this is a hard issue. And there are many in our community who want housing someplace else. In our neighborhood now at MTA. Thank you.
My name is Chris Teuber, and I'm a 39-year resident and homeowner in Venice. I support 180510 CD11 and bridge housing in Venice, and in particular bridge housing at the currently vacant MTA site. Opponents of bridge housing have carried signs saying Venice opposes bridge housing, as if they speak for all of us. That is false, and they know it. They have proposed sending homeless to camps out of the area. This violates federal and international law, and they know it. For the police or others to move the homeless from the streets, they must have safe and secure housing that is also secular. And the bridge housing proposed provides that. We need to supply them with the needed services. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Ryavec, President of Venice Stakeholders Association. I'm a 30-year resident of Venice and former legislative analyst for this body. Today, my attorney delivered to you a letter challenging the categorical exemption for this project. I'm sure you will not read this letter challenge the Bureau of Engineering's report on issues of noise, parking, ground contamination, and other issues. It's nice of you to hold it up. I'm sure you haven't read it. Nor will you give me or other residents the time to raise these issues in detail before you in this forum. So we will be forced to file a sequel lawsuit to be heard. I would note that this project has not been approved by the Venice Neighborhood Council, and in fact, that body has asked for the city to do a feasibility study of other sites that the Neighborhood Council thought were better. We would ask at this point that you postpone this matter and ask the Bureau of Engineering to review the issues our attorneys have raised and conduct a full environmental impact report on the proposal addressing parking, noise, and site contamination, and conduct the feasibility study that's called by the Venice Neighborhood Council.
Thank you so much. Sam, Awad, Travis, Benin, Jeremy Burdick.
Hi there, I'm Venice resident. I do support services for the homeless. I do not support the location of the MTA site. Bridge homes are great, maybe. This is an experiment, as the mayor have said. The city has not presented, or Mike Monan has not presented any valid criteria that says this location for the bridge home is a great location because of this and this and that. There needs to be some powerful criteria for the selection of any site to help any homeless person transition from homelessness out of it. I just did my own data analysis on city properties, and I came up with a great site that has 147,000 feet that could be used as a permanent supportive housing site in parallel as a bridge home as well, that has a ton of level entry jobs all outside of it, stores, 3 bus stops, grocery store, pharmacies, even a liquor store. I would like to urge you to take the consideration of the Venice Neighborhood Council that speaks for all of Venice. There was 1,000 people against the location. Please consider it.
Thank you.
How do I submit this location that I
hand it to the staff on the side of the room? Yes.
My name's Travis Binnen. I'm a resident of Venice. I'm for bridge housing. I'm completely against the location of the MTA. When Mike Bonin took office, there were about 200 homeless people in the area. Now there's between 1,100 and 1,200. These are mostly transients. That location is going to attract more transients. A lot of them have mental health issues. A lot of them are drug and alcohol addicted. This is not a good place. It's surrounded by residents. Trying to rehabilitate these people in a residential neighborhood a block from 3 schools is a terrible idea. Putting this thing by a beach is like putting a rehab in a casino. It's only going to attract more and endanger more of our lives. Thank you.
Carmel Beaumont, Adelia Aguilar, Elisa De La Roca. Yes.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Burdick. I'm a Venice resident. A CEQA exemption is noted for the negligent expansion of use of the site. The prior use was bus maintenance and is currently vacant land. A shelter is a major expansion and entirely different use. The city promises a 3-year term, but the mayor and 3 appointees on the board of the MTA, plus 2 county supervisors who historically support homeless projects, will have 6 of 13 votes to indefinitely extend the shelter. The mayor's term expires in 4 years and will not face Los Angeles voters again. Future mayors won't have any incentive to shut down the shelter. Venice Bridge project will cost $5 million, and it's hard to believe it will be thrown away in 3 years. The city has promised cleanups, but Bonin has said there are no plans to exploit temporary housing to displace encampment dwellers, and the courts would laugh at us if the city tried to enforce the laws after meeting the Jones settlement. Enhanced cleanup signs near the El Pueblo shelter still allow overnight camping. They only warn about daytime enforcement, yet homeless aid organizations have threatened the city over sweeps. No alternative sites have been studied in District 11, although they were for Koreatown, when the initial site wasn't even surrounded by residential use as Venice is, and even though the VNC demanded the city consider other sites.
Thank you.
Thank you. Carmel Beaumont. Please note, nobody here has a problem with the homeless. Some of us are afraid of the criminal homeless element that is a threat to our neighborhood. Having said that, imagine those 2, Herman and Wayne, but more dangerous, shouting obscenities and making threats, and the tension they create here in your chambers where you are surrounded by law enforcement and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, that's the situation that you're going to create in our neighborhood, but without surrounding law enforcement to protect us. Please do not support this motion. Oh, by the way, the link to submit comments to the Homeless and Poverty Committee is broken, and should postpone this vote until that issue is resolved, because a lot of people can't post their comments, or were not able to post comments today and yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Folks will note there'll be another, thank you for bringing that to our attention. There will be another hearing on this in full city council, so folks will get to submit comments or come and make comments if they like at that time. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Cecilia. I'm a Venice resident. Our homeless need help. We all know that. However, bridge housing at the MTA site is not the solution. It's surrounded on all four sides by homes, and there are 3 preschools and 1 elementary school just blocks away. While many homeless are people that are down on their luck, there are many that are criminals. Because Venice has the beach and easy drug access, it attracts those homeless people that are criminals. There has been other locations proposed that may be a better solution. Think about it. Our politicians want to throw millions of dollars for a quick, temporary fix to this huge problem. They don't know that bridge homes are going to work. Major Garcetti himself said this is an experiment. Well, let's experiment in a location where so many residents won't be affected and it works well for the homeless. Please consider the other locations before voting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I provide the
Yes,
other
ma'am.
locations? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Elisa De La Roca, and I'm a 48-year resident in Venice, California. And I'm here today to basically voice my opposition to MTA lot as a bridge housing site. I don't think I need to go into too much detail because I have sent you many letters and email correspondence in the past, so I'm sure you know my position. I want to thank you for accepting a little bit of criticism today, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eva Green, Miss Eva Green, Jamie Page, and Orlando Ward.
Hi. So you're seeking a CEQA exemption from Article 19.15.304, minor alterations to land. It says that the grading shall not be exempt in an officially designated mapped area of severe geological hazard. Land west of Lincoln Boulevard is in a tsunami zone, delineated by the California State Geologist. Mr. Bonin said, and I quote, "We're getting sea level rising, the implication of climate change." Bonin said that he expects that parts of his district will be underwater in the next 50 years. That's from the LA Times article. And yet he's trying to convince you, all of you, to build costly homeless temporary housing and shelters in an area that will be underwater with sea level risings. It doesn't make sense, and there is no CEQA exemption here. And for the people who are saying that they want to build housing, if it were people that live there, and we're not in the business.
Thank you so much. Your time has expired. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Jamie Page. For the record, I'm not opposed to homeless services, but I am opposed to the MTA Bridge Housing Project. There's been a lack of notice to neighbors. The proposal was released. The public has not had a time to review the details. The scale of the project will impact many neighbors who live close to this project. That it's an empty lot until planned development does not make it a feasible location for the shelter. We've seen signs in Venice that says yes. In fact, the neighbors are largely against the notion because we are already dealing with the side effects of homeless services that are not holding up to their end of the deal. Bridge housing is an expensive remedy. It is not the proper fit for the area. The narrative isn't about property value. It's about the safety and the quality of the life around us that has significantly deteriorated because of Mike Bonin. I'm asking you to please postpone this project and meet with the neighborhood before you move forward.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, members, or afternoon.
My name is Orlando Ward. Professionally, I work for Volunteers of America, and we are very much involved in providing solutions for homelessness. But I want to talk about a personal issue. I was born in Venice, and I became homeless in Venice, and I became a transient because I got ran out of Venice. And I think perhaps what we're mixing up here, the mayor's A Bridge Home program is getting mixed up with what bridge housing is. Bridge housing is for individuals that are already in the housing pipeline and they're waiting for their housing to be there. We're not talking about people that are coming in a drop-in center or any other kind of condition. And I think we need to do a better job of educating the public exactly what the population is we're talking about here.
Thank you. Can I see item number 16? Just to make sure they're... Come on, Mr. Mures. We gave you 2 minutes in the beginning, but we'll give you another minute now because we like your hat. Mr. Mures, we did not call on you. Mures.
Oh, I think you said.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not as articulate
That's
as
why
I'd
I
like.
tried to clarify. It was item not on the agenda. You said
Right.
yes.
Well, that's why we give 2 minutes, because if you sign up for multiple items, we give you 2 minutes at one time to speak on all of them. But since you're new and your councilman spoke up for you, we're going to...
It's all her fault.
Yes. We're going to
Thank
hear
you.
from you again. Let's go. 1 minute.
I'll talk real quick. I do support the concept of bridge housing or bridge home project, but I think that it's very important that the financial aspects are first and foremost considered because of the limited resources you have. I live within 200 feet of the MTA site that you're considering on item 14. I have not been officially notified other than a newsletter that I received from my councilman, which I appreciate, but it's not official notice. It doesn't exactly tell me what's happening. As far as CEQA is concerned, the engineering study that was done did not consider the cumulative impact within the coastal zone. It did look at cumulative impacts within the Venice region versus the city of Los Angeles, but the coastal zone is something that stretches up and down California, not just within Venice. Food services have been described, but they haven't really explained how they're going to get 150 people 2 or 3 meals a day onto the site and still deal with the trash. Thank you.
Thank you. What's your name, ma'am? Yeah, I called you. Come on up.
Thank you, I appreciate it. My name is Jennifer Novak, and I'm an environmental attorney. I am concerned that this committee is going to move forward with the MTA site without any further environmental review, which would ignore known chemical contamination that could pose a threat to human health for the people who reside there and work and visit to the site. For more than 100 years, the property was used for transit and rail and had 7 underground storage tanks containing hazardous materials such as oil, diesel, gasoline, and antifreeze. In 2016, the city's consultant found residual benzene and diesel in the soil with levels high enough to warrant further investigation. The full property was not investigated for legacy contamination from any of its prior operations and chemical use. To our knowledge, no one has checked to see whether the site poses a risk to the health of the people there or could be used for residential use, and we ask that the city evaluate further environmental risks before moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have before us items 7, 8, 14, and 16. Everybody that I see on the queue has already spoken either for 2 minutes or on 2 items. So we will close public comment on those matters and hear from Councilmember Bonin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to everybody who's come down today on both sides of the various items that we've just heard from. On the agenda today, including the item we approved a little bit earlier and the items we're considering now, we are looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different bridge housing facilities in the city of Los Angeles. There's already one operational downtown. Others have been approved in Hollywood, and one is under construction right now in the 11th District in the community of Brentwood. We have had in this country, we have a system, a socioeconomic system that forces people into homelessness, punishes them for being homeless and then objects and puts roadblocks in the way of any solutions to homelessness. And Los Angeles today and in those previous actions is taking a step to break that cycle. Historically, Los Angeles's approach to homelessness has been a neglectful one, and that has caused people to suffer, and it has caused neighborhoods to suffer. And for a very long time, Los Angeles, given a choice by the courts of beds or sidewalks, has chosen sidewalks. And this council and this mayor and this county board of supervisors has been determined to change that and to replace sidewalk encampments with bridge housing and permanent housing and shared housing and myriad other opportunities. That is the choice. You see the signs out there, beds, not sidewalks. And a solution in concept doesn't get anybody off the streets. A solution in concept does not remove encampments from in front of your homes or your children's schools. A solution in concept is not a solution. It's only a solution when it's in application. And these actions today are a step towards applying that and a step towards a solution, one of many that still need to come. And I move approval.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bond. And I just want to register how excited and proud I am of all of our colleagues from around the city. You see we have a number of motions before us today that seek to do bridge housing around the city. Before now, we've heard more than a dozen such sites. We have had them in South LA, we have them in San Pedro, we have them in Harbor Gateway, we have them in the San Fernando Valley, East, West, and Central, Hollywood, Echo Park, Silver Lake, Venice, and Brentwood. And I think this says a lot for the city of Los Angeles and who we are in the face of this problem. Many people say go away or go somewhere else. We don't want to deal with the inconvenience that is caused by homelessness, and I think our city on the whole recognizes that homelessness is an inconvenient truth that we all have to deal with, and until we deal with it, we will face these tough issues. And so I applaud certainly my committee mate on the specifics in the 11th district, but all of the members who put forward motions. And so with that, we will adopt these items and communicate that to the full council. Can we go to item number 9?
Item number 9 is a motion, Rodriguez Harris Dawson, relative to the winter shelter program and adopting a good neighbor policy as part of the winter shelter contract.
Okay, all of our public comment speakers on this have spoken on multiple items, and so I believe there's an additional instruction that we want to read, and we're getting a report from staff as well. So if we could read the instruction, and then we'll hear from staff.
Direct LASA to provide a written report to this committee documenting the good neighbor policy, including information about the community process and an operation protocols toolkit to serve as best practices guide. Additionally, we recommend that LASA, with the help of HCID, report to this committee on ways to incorporate a good neighbor policy as part of the protocol for establishing, monitoring, and evaluating winter shelters in the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you. Yes. Could folks try to leave as quietly as possible? We've got folks speaking before us. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. Paula Bassiana, Planning Deputy for Councilwoman Rodriguez. I would like to provide a few comments to introduce this item before turning it over to Jeff Proctor of LASA that will provide more detail. The motion before you seeks to memorialize the Good Neighbor Policy. This was a community process and resulting operational protocols applied to the Pacoima Winter Shelter in an effort to reach community consensus about its location. For some context, this shelter is actually en route to 3 local elementary schools, so parents had very serious safety concerns about interactions in that shared public space. It's also, however, the only emergency winter shelter in the San Fernando Valley, so it's an important community resource for homeless folks in our district. Through conversations with the community and our homeless service providers, we were able to turn concerns into actionable items, operational changes that help the shelter fit in more seamlessly with the community and become a better neighbor. With the successful operation last year without incidences, we were able to welcome the shelter back to open its doors this season. And just last month, we finished 3 presentations at PTA groups at the schools that were most vocal last year, and are happy to report that we received support, and many parents, in fact, were hoping to get involved to donate food and clothing to the shelter. So because we had success with that model, it's something that we wanted to share with the committee. And with that, I will turn it over to Jeff.
Thank you, Council. Jeff Proctor with WASA. Thank you, Paula, for the introduction to this item. As Paula introduced, the Good Neighbor policy was implemented for our winter shelter program in Pacoima for last season's winter shelter program in the San Fernando Valley. It was introduced and implemented basically out of a community listening session where a number of community concerns were elevated to the council district, and the council district, in conjunction with WASA and the provider, agreed to a series of operational and programming elements to address those concerns that would be reflected and captured in the provider's contract, with some funding as well provided to help support the implementation of those operational elements. So based on the information that was provided in those community listening sessions, it was primarily regarding sort of the safety and security of the site and the surrounding area. The winter shelter program is at a church in an area that's somewhat more residential than many of our other shelter programs, and also in proximity to a couple different schools. So in order to address some of those concerns, we ensured that there was 24-hour security of the site. We also changed some of the operational design of the program to ensure that participants were transported in and out of the facility on a daily basis rather than allowing walk-ups. This sort of mitigated the concerns for loitering and persons hanging out during the day in front of the church or around the school. We also modified some of the operating hours, so it was less in conflict with the church and school operations. We wanted it to be integrated within sort of the natural environment a little bit more seamlessly, so we changed the intake hours and discharge hours in the morning so that it was more aligned with the community's just sort of natural state of affairs. We also, by changing some of those intake hours, it also addressed some noise concerns and other things like that that the community had addressed. In addition, we also had a 24-hour grievance and complaint hotline that we put into play so that people in the neighborhood could call and escalate any concerns that they had regarding the winter shelter site. And we also continued to have community meetings. I believe we had 5 meetings over the winter shelter season with community members to have opportunity for them to speak to us and raise any questions or concerns or issues that they may have had, and then also incorporate the feedback we got from them into program supports and enhancements. Each of these things did come with some costs, and so we made sure to provide the funder with some additional resources to implement each of these things. But as Paula said, the program ran without any major issues. It was a successful program. Over 750 persons were served throughout the year. No major incidents were reported, and the provider also has reported back to us that they felt like these good neighbor elements that we asked of them have resulted in better programming for the persons they're serving, plus better relations with the community, and that now they're seeing persons who were coming to those community meetings with complaints or grievances now coming back to ask to volunteer and how they can support and work with the shelter for this season. This site successfully opened this week, and we have persons sheltered there now, and the provider is continuing to operate some of these good neighbor elements again in this season, as Paula had stated, there have already been a number of community engagement meetings that have happened this year to try to incorporate some of the community's recommendations into the program design.
Excellent. Questions, comments? Mr. Bonin.
Just a quick question. I'd like to thank our colleague, Ms. Rodriguez, for this work. This is a good model. I think people are excited by it. I just want to remind LASA that part of the good neighbor thing extends to the pickup and drop-off locations.
Yes.
And I find myself in this situation every year, and I'm in it again, where I am telling LASA it's not acceptable to have a single pickup location for the West Side Winter Shelter, because what that does is it tells people from east of the 405, from Malibu, from Hollywood, if you want to go and get a shelter bed tonight, you have to go to Venice, and that system doesn't work. So we, as I have reiterated to your chief executive over the weekend, we need more locations, and I'd like that to be a routine thing.
Yes.
Because it's not a good neighbor when we only have one location and we're drawing people from several cities on the west side to one location.
Yep, we can definitely discuss that.
Thank you.
And I wanted to also thank and applaud our colleague Monica Rodriguez for leading the process to get this program adopted. I would just note, and it's unfortunate, a lot of the people that raised the very concerns that this policy addressed left the room before we got to hear this report. Probably I could be a little bit better chairperson in ordering the items. But I would just note that, these are very vigorous standards. Hotels don't have these standards. Liquor stores don't have these standards. Marijuana dispensaries don't have these standards. And lots of other businesses that folks argue probably should have these standards don't. So LASA has helped create a situation where not only do these facilities benefit the people that move into them, but they actually contribute to the overall quality of life. All of us know that represent challenging areas. Every business that has a 24-hour security guard ends up helping the whole neighborhood, not just the individual business that's working there. And all businesses that have rules about when people come and go and how they come and go also helps the entire neighborhood. And so I think this is a great program. So we will adopt this with the instructions and forward that on to council, and thank you all for your presentation. Can we read into the record number 10 and 11? Also by our stalwart colleague from the great 7th District, Monica Rodriguez.
Item 10 is a motion, Rodriguez Harris Dawson, relative to requesting LASA and LA's Best to report on the processes and protocols in place for working together to refer youth and families who identify as homeless to supportive services and entertaining them into coordinated entry system. Item number 11 is a motion, Rodriguez Huizar, relative to instructing the Chief Legislative Analyst with the assistance of LASA, the Department of Aging, the Economic Workforce Development Department, and the Housing and Community Investment Department to report on senior homelessness.
Excellent, thank you. So we have no additional speakers on this item. Yes, ma'am. Tell me your name. 11, tell me your name. Yes, okay. I'm sorry, I got you mixed up with someone.
Confusing, sorry.
Yeah, you got it. Do you need 2 minutes or 1?
1 minute is good.
Let's do it.
So I spoke earlier. My name is Alana Raymerman, but I'm here for this item to speak on behalf of the Los Angeles Aging Advocacy Coalition Policy Action Team. We're a diverse coalition of stakeholders advocating collectively for policies that impact vulnerable and homeless older adults. As you know, there was a 26% increase in older adult homelessness in the 2018 homeless count and a 21% increase in the county in, again, homelessness over the age of 62. So it's more important than ever to take action on this vulnerable population. The Policy Action Team encourages the city to partner with the county CEO Office of the Homeless Initiative. They're spearheading efforts at the county level to address this population and just released a report on November 15th outlining some really exciting recommendations on what they're going to be doing at the county county level to address senior homelessness. So I definitely recommend that you review that report if you haven't already. Oh, maybe I do need 2 minutes.
Please do not disrupt the meeting
yes,
one more time, Mr. Spindler.
We also, the policy action team also encourages the city to develop recommendations with a collaborative and community-based process, bringing together both homeless services and senior services. And some potential recommendations that you could consider at the council would be, establishing a senior housing set-aside or incentives for senior housing within the HHH PSH program. Submitting a HEAP funding request for field-capable services because many older adults have trouble accessing brick-and-mortar services because of mobility issues, and establishing accessibility in the bridge home sites, such as limited bunk beds, ramps, handrails, wide hallways, clear signage, and screening for fall risks. So again, thank you for considering this vulnerable and underrepresented population, and I hope that we could potentially work together. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll adopt items number 10 and 11.
Can I get any comment?
Please sit down.
Mike Bonnen's a drug addict.
You are disrupting the meeting. One more time and we're done for today. So we have now items 12 and 13, which is a HHH bond status report. Could we read those into the record, and we'll ask the staff to come forward to help us to report to us on those.
And just to clarify, did you make a recommendation for 10 and 11, or are you going?
To approve, yes.
Okay, thank you. Item 12 is a report from the City Administrative Officer relative to the Comprehensive Homeless Strategy Quarterly Performance Report for the first quarter of fiscal year 2018-19. And item 13 is reports from the City Administrative Officer relative to the quarterly report for the Proposition HHH fiscal year 2017-18 bond issuance for quarters April 1st through June 30th, 2018, and July 1st through September 30th, 2018.
Hi, Meg Barclay, City Homeless Coordinator in the Office of the CAO. Item number 12, the report on the Comprehensive Homeless Strategy Quarterly Performance Report for the first quarter of this fiscal year is provided. It provides an update on key strategies and accomplishments, and including the continued implementation of Proposition HHH, the receipt of the California Homeless Emergency Aid Program grant to the City of Los Angeles, and the Bridge Home Program. Relative to Proposition HHH, the last quarter, or the first quarter of this fiscal year, the Proposition HHH bonds were issued as a result of council approval of the project expenditure plan in the last quarter of the previous fiscal year. A total of $311 million was issued for permanent supportive housing, primarily $238 million and $37 million for 22 facilities. Additionally, we have an update on...
I'm sorry, do you know how many units?
Yes. Total, there were 24 PSH projects in that issuance, totaling 1,517 units, of which 1,242 are supportive, and 22 facilities, including 4 city-sponsored projects, including one in your district, Mr. Harris-Dawson. Additionally, there are numbers on the affordable and supportive housing production. HCID financed 167 new supportive units, for example, and the transit-oriented communities guidelines had been in effect for 1 year as of last quarter. And as of the end of the quarter, there are 5,597 pending units, 986 of which are affordable, and that's affordable with no subsidy, which is pretty cool. And there's details on the levels of affordability in Attachment 1. Other status updates are also provided in Attachment 1 to the report. And last quarter, we also received the Homeless Emergency Aid Program grant in record time. The council approved the recommendations for the application in late August. The application was submitted in on September 12th, and it was actually approved by the end of September, and about a week later we had a check in the amount of $85,013,000 So we are working diligently to prepare recommendations for the next set of allocations from those funds. As it relates to a bridge home, the first site opened at El Pueblo Historic Monument on September 10th, and 2 new sites began construction, one in Council District 13 and one in Council District 11 on the VA West LA campus. We also provide the first quarter of metrics. The report includes a summary of the headline metrics, which, as you recall, are the expansion of the supply of affordable and homeless housing, placements into permanent housing, placements into temporary housing, prevention, housing retention, and also employment and vocational training and education. And the details of those metrics are provided in attachment 2. It's a pretty standard QPR at this point.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Item number, Tim Elliott, Development Manager for HSID. Item number 13 is a report on the status of the first bond issuance through September of this year. And at the time, there was 3 projects under construction, and about 8% of the money had been expended. Since that time, 4 more projects have closed their construction loans, and there's 1 more that should close today. Out of the first 9 projects, there would be 1 more, which should get bond allocation on the 14th of this month, and should close next March, if not sooner. So that's, that brings us up to date on that particular project. Now, there's a subsequent bond sale that's happened that Meg just talked about. There's going to be 5 projects that will close by the end of the year out of that subset, and another 4 or 3 or 4 that will close by. They have to close next month, and altogether there's 27 that are fully funded and are moving through the system out of the 55 that have been approved for a total of $556 million. And we took new applications Monday of Thanksgiving week and received 26 more applications requesting $236 million, and we're in the process of reviewing those. And so we'll be coming back through the Citizens Oversight Board and the Administrative Oversight Board and back to your committee in January on those.
The first quarterly report on that second issuance will be presented to the Citizens Oversight and the Administrative Oversight Committees in January. So we'll have another quarterly update on this issuance and then the first one on the second issuance.
Ed Gibson, Housing Community Investment Department. Just to touch on the note that Tim said, so for clarity, to date we are at 55 projects with commitments. 3,712 units are in the system. As Tim just noted, we just closed a round with additional 26 applications, which would equal another 1,693 units if all approved and moving forward. Knowing how difficult it is to do any development and cite any project, I think the program's moving very well in a process that takes 3 to 5 years, and we made our first commitments less than 6 months after the passing of HHH in 2017, March. So doing rather well with all those challenges.
Excellent. Does that conclude your report?
That concludes our report.
Excellent. Questions or comments, Mr. Bonin? Excellent. No questions or comments on this item. We'll move to adopt these reports.
The recommendation on both of these reports would be to note and file. There are no recommendations in the reports to adopt.
So we'll note and file the reports.
Thank you.
And then we have item number 6, which we'll take on consent. There's no public comment cards. So for the record, we'll communicate support for item number 6. And that leaves us with item number 15, for which we'll read into the record, and there's also a recommended instruction that I'd ask you to read as well.
Item number 15 is a motion Harris Dawson Bonin relative to requesting the city attorney to prepare and present an ordinance extending the Los Angeles Municipal Code Section 85.02 for 6 months, and also an amendment that the chair requests a report back from Street Services and LA Sanitation with assistance from the Chief Legislative Analyst, City Administrative Officer, and City Attorney to review and recommend measures to ensure clean and healthy conditions around vehicle dwellings.
Excellent. I've got no public comment speakers on this. Any questions or comments? I seeing none from Mr. Bonin. Move that we adopt this measure with the instruction. Without objection, that'll be the communication to the full council. If you can help me out, we have any other items to consider?
Agenda's clear.
The agenda's clear. We're adjourned. Wait. I did. We did.
You said 6.